episode, again talking to James, this time about a question that we get very, very often. It's the question of how James got to where he is now, working as a private guide and as a director and filmmaker at Black Bean Productions. So I think, let's start from the beginning, from after school and your studies.
So after school, again, it feels like it was yesterday, but a long time ago. I, like most people, went straight into studying a degree, a commerce degree, which I actually quite enjoyed. But I tragically lost a dear friend of mine to a car accident, and for some reason my mindset shifted very quickly, and I realized I wanted to be channeling my energy into something that I really enjoyed. And I think, I've been really fortunate from a young age, and I think, this is testament to my father's influence. I've always realized that I've had a deep connection with the wilderness and wildlife, and really enjoyed the outdoors. And I think I was fortunate to realize this, and decided to pursue a course studying environmental studies and game ranch management, which I absolutely thoroughly enjoyed. It was content that I really enjoyed putting a lot of effort into learning more about, and at the same time it allowed me flexibility to focus on other aspects, like going through FGASA, which is the Field Guiding Association of South Africa, and starting to equip myself at quite a young age in terms of getting courses behind me, both theoretical and practical. And I did that through eco training. So it was quite nice to be able to come out of my tertiary education not only having studied and got a diploma behind my name, but also being in a position where I was employable, and I had practical skills, and I had also gone through FGASA. So that's essentially how I studied before becoming a game ranger working for Singita.
So just to explain, you've got to have your FGASA in South Africa to guide. It's not like that in every country. What levels do you have to have, or how does it work? Each country differs. South Africa, we go through FGASA, like I said earlier, the Field Guiding Association of South Africa, and to be a qualified guide you need to go through this entity, and it comprises of doing both theoretical and practical examinations, and it's changed, to be honest, since I was involved and working my way up through the system. And essentially how it works is you have different levels. You start with level 1, and each level comprises of a practical element, a theoretical element, and then also there's a certain amount of hours you need to have behind your name before actually applying for the second level, and so on and so forth. So working in the bush, obviously you can continue your studies, and it's nice because it motivates you to further your skill set as well as your education on the natural world and various topics, and it also allows you to have something tangible to be able to promote yourself and possibly find future employment. While I was in the bush working for a company, it was something that we had to go through, and it was mandatory. And when I left the bush, I got my level 3 theory, and obviously my practical experience, and was able to walk dangerous game with the use of a high caliber rifle, which is obviously fundamental. And that was the Trails Guide course.
And that was the Trails Guide course. So that also falls under FGASA, and again is a theory as well as a practical examination. Essentially being a guide, you need to know not only how to find animals, but talk about their ecology, geology, astronomy, and cover a wide variety of subjects and be well versed in these various subjects. And FGASA certainly helps with that. Today, as a private guide, you don't necessarily need to go through FGASA because you're working with local guides on the ground. But I think initially it's a fantastic organization to go through, and obviously is fundamental in any guide or any young guide's development.
And then, you're also quite fortunate after your studies, before actually, working with guests,
at Singita. Singita is an incredible company that has beautiful 5-star lodges across Africa. And James was employed there, but he was fortunate they were running a training course at the time, and he spent 6 months training before he actually was guest facing, and that course was really life-changing.
Yeah, that was, I had to pinch myself, I think, every time I woke up and readied myself for the day, and I think it was the same for, all the colleagues and close people that I now call close friends, who I was on the course with. And, it was a bunch of young, like-minded individuals, all from kind of different parts of the country and different backgrounds. And I got to say that's probably one of the best 6 months of my life in terms of just immersing yourself in the bush, learning every day. We had the most amazing mentor, a chap by the name of Alan Hewitt, and really this good energy and almost competitive nature amongst the various guides to just upskill ourselves and prove ourselves in a sense, and doing everything, I guess, as a young boy I dreamed of doing in the bush.
And at the time you were based at the Singita Sabi Sands Lodge, which is in the Sabi Sand Game Reserve, which is incredible in terms of the abundance of wildlife. So you were doing the course you couldn't ask for a better place.
No, I mean, it was unbelievable. Anyone who knows the Sabi Sands knows that, from a leopard point of view, it's got one of the highest densities of leopards per square kilometer anywhere in the world. Opportunities to track, really interesting wildlife. Just where we lived, we had so many incidents just walking from the lodge back to, our camp, which was, a little further away from the main camp. So literally we were immersed in an area that had such high concentrations of game, a fair amount of diversity, and again, as you say, probably one of the better places to have been positioned as a young trainee guide.
And from then, you started guiding guests and working hard for the next 4 years.
Yeah, I think any guide will tell you, after those formative years where you are, literally just upskilling yourself and gaining knowledge and, your hours in the bush, you get assessed. And I think that's one of the most, daunting exercises for most guides or youngsters is, you have a bunch of professionals jump on the back of your vehicle, including lodge staff from different departments, and, you're assessed and your skill sets are put to the test, and also how you deliver and you instill knowledge, and how you conduct yourself while on a game drive or a walking exercise is all tested, and it's incredibly daunting. And I think the first couple of drives, hosting guests, it's exhilarating. It really was, for me anyways, it was really exhilarating being able to share all this knowledge I have. And we started guiding guests, and and really enjoyed being in a position where we could showcase the natural heritage and these beautiful areas that we have with people from all over the world. But it's funny, I often joke, after coming out of these training courses, you are equipped with so much information, which you often forget over time. So these trainees coming out of these selection courses often are armed with some amazing information and are able to really conduct themselves well, and something I miss to this day in terms of being able to spend every day in the bush working with guests.
And that period was at Singita Kruger National Park at Labombo and Sweni lodges. So you moved from the sands not too far into the Kruger, which is quite a famous national park. And we were based there. And then in terms of, moving from guiding to private guiding and to Black Bean, you obviously moved back to Cape Town.
Well, the first hurdle I had to get over was convincing you to come join me in the bush, which was great. Sam did an honours degree and had an extra year at varsity, but thankfully came and joined me up at Singita, up at the Lwanetsi concession in the Kruger National Park. Something I was very grateful for, and it was, to this day, we talk about it, one of the most enjoyable chapters of our lives, something that we would never take back. So yes, worked in the Kruger National Park and the Lwanetsi concession, a beautiful concession on the eastern boundary of Kruger National Park, about 60 clicks as the crow flies from the Sabi Sands. And again, just had the most incredible chapter living with my girlfriend at the time, and working and living a lifestyle in the bush. Again, sadly, life throws a curveball, and my father had been diagnosed with cancer, when I was a small boy, actually one of the longest surviving leukemia patients in the world, and it was now time for us to head back to Cape Town and be with him, as sadly he deteriorated and passed away. But again, a decision that I didn't take lightly, and I'm glad we made in terms of moving back to the city. And essentially that's where we started Black Bean Productions. We were now back in the city. I was away from the bush, and we, after all of our experiences in Kruger, specifically one experience that we had with a rhino, decided we could use the tools of our trade, combine photography and film in terms of educating people, and still allow ourselves to get into the bush.
And I think even in the bush, you were passionate about documenting what you saw and sharing it, but even during the rhino incident, which is when we found a rhino that had been poached, James was filming it and documenting it, and obviously we'll bring Ollie into the story now, but partnering with him and realizing that a lot of people didn't know what was happening in Africa on the ground and what challenges conservationists were facing, that telling these stories and filming them and documenting them was so important.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and now you look at guides, most guides, are armed with a pretty formidable camera. Back in the day, we also picked up a camera and documented what we saw in front of us, and it just added value to being out in the bush and experiencing these amazing sightings that we had. But being out in the bush, specifically during the chapter that we were there, wasn't always easy. And, you talked about experiencing a poached rhino. There were so many rhinos that we found, sadly, in our area of operation that had met their fate at the hands of poachers.
Yeah, we were on the Mozambican border.
Being right on the Mozambican border, exactly. And there were a number of crazy encounters that we had, sadly, over those number of years we were in Kruger. And as you say, this was a time where, social media had just begun. A friend of mine and myself started a Facebook page called Safari Brothers, where we were just documenting, what unfolded in front of us. And that was, I think, one of the first Facebook pages, I can remember, that talked to guides showcasing what they were doing, on a daily basis. And I think that morphed, I had a video camera as well, and, just starting to document things that we saw in the bush and experiences we had, whether they were good or bad.
Yeah. And then, many people ask, like, how did you end up kind of being able to film, and have access and film the stories that you film? I think it's important for people to know that a lot of hard work went into the beginning of Black Bean, and you and Ollie decided you wanted to tell important stories, and you jumped in your car and drove to Kruger. And I think what really helped was that you knew people, that you were very much knowledgeable. You were knowledgeable on these topics, and you were a guide, so people trusted you and trusted you to be out there with them, to be sensitive to the situations, to be okay in a possibly dangerous situation. And I think that really, really helped in those early days and for those first shoots that you did.
Absolutely, yeah. I think Ollie Calder, by the way, for those of you who don't know, I'm sure you do, is our director of photography and also, a friend that has been, one of my closest friends since we were little kids. And, working obviously with him very closely and having, the background knowledge of, operating specifically in Kruger and knowing the crisis that we were facing at that time and even still today, we were able to secure our first job, which was working with the counter-poaching unit in Kruger National Park and documenting their story with a borrowed camera and literally making the call the night before to drive from Cape Town to Kruger and spend 2 weeks with this unit.
Self-funded,
yeah, which was definitely a defining moment for us at Black Bean Productions, and again the first shoot that we ever did.
Yeah, and I think another thing, with starting your own company is often you have to self-fund a lot in the beginning to build a show reel and to really perfect your skills, and I think private guiding assisted with that, just to be able to kind of keep going and keep earning an income at the same time whilst building Black Bean Productions.
Yeah, so again, very fortunate with regards to private guiding. For those of you who don't know what private guiding is all about, and it's something that's actually become a big part of the industry and is, I think, continuing to grow in terms of its popularity, is having a guide who is familiar with various areas of operation throughout Africa and is able to host and add value to any safari. So I still do a number of private guided safaris, and I did back then where I accompany clients on multi-country itineraries and work with them in terms of just maximizing their opportunities and creating value or adding value to any safari experience. So what's worked quite nicely with the private guiding is, yes, certainly it's assisted with regards to bringing in some form of revenue, which has helped us grow Black Bean Productions, but it's also allowed myself personally to grow in terms of learning about different places in Africa, and therefore also meeting and learning about different conservation initiatives, and that's really been great in terms of us being able to leverage and work together with the contacts that I've made through private guiding, and obviously the incredible team at Black Bean Productions in terms of working with these teams and documenting the important work that they're doing.
Yeah, so often you'll meet someone on safari or through a safari, and we'll end up going to film or document something, wherever they're based.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously a lot of these tourism entities have a conservation arm, and that's something that I'm incredibly passionate about, and we're seeing now the trend is for guests that are traveling to Africa to actually want to get involved, not just sit on the back of a vehicle and look at wildlife, but actually actively get involved in various initiatives. And I think the conservation arms of a number of properties that we work closely with are doing a great job in terms of including people visiting these particular countries. We also showcase our work to some of the guests that I host on safari, and every now and again we have clients that really resonate with a project that we've worked on, and we've been incredibly fortunate to have some amazing families who have supported and continue to support us at Black Bean Productions.
Yeah, that's made all the difference, because obviously with a lot of the films that we do, specifically for NGOs, they don't have massive budgets for marketing, but if they have a video, they're just able to raise that much more in terms of funding and awareness. Whereas if they don't have that video, they're quite limited in terms of sharing their story with people overseas. So it's been amazing to have support from various individuals and a company called Empowers Africa, who is, as a grant, have given a film to various NGOs to help them raise funds and just to have something online to showcase what they do.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think, so I mean, it's important also to share that at Black Bean we do the sort of these conservation stories, a lot of work for NGOs, and we've got some independent projects, but we also of course film a lot of lodges and that falls under our commercial work as well. And we were fortunate to have worked at Singita because they ended up being a client of ours for many years.
Yeah, and again, just so thankful to Singita, obviously having that relationship with them. We cut our teeth shooting lodge videos and producing content for various properties in terms of selling their lodges. And again, this is where we also picked up on so many stories, important stories, that involved conservation and an important message that we wanted to get across. And I think Black Beans definitely evolved and morphed into a company that tells stories, and we've obviously got our different departments and projects that we work in, but certainly initially it was more focused on producing beautiful content, talking to lodges and trying to get buns in beds, so to speak, whereas today we're a lot more focused on the narrative and working with organizations in terms of telling their stories, and obviously passionate about the conservation space.
And also, quite a funny story, some of our first videos of Black Bean were called Wonderful Wildlife videos with James, and they were filmed at Singita, and it was really him as a guide taking you on a walk or taking you on a drive. And that was also a great learning curve, and it just meant that people overseas could watch it and feel as though they were there experiencing the elephants or the lions with James.
Yeah, and without blowing our own trumpet, we felt like we were really ahead of the game. There was no one else really doing this at the time, and I always thought it would be so nice for people to be able to experience what we did in the bush. We had so many amazing encounters, from tracking a pride of 30 lions on foot on a Monday morning, and being able to bring that to people who are interested in this space. We thought was just such an awesome idea. So initially we did start where it was literally just Ollie and I. Poor Ollie, being quite a city slicker and coming from a commercial background, suddenly being thrown in the middle of the bush and expected to be on foot with wild animals and work these crazy hours, which he was actually used to. But it really was also a great chapter for us in terms of we just had this freedom to really do what we really enjoy doing, spend quality time together and produce interesting content.
Yeah, and Ollie's incredibly talented as a filmmaker, and now he's incredibly knowledgeable when it comes to the bush. And I think that knowledge and just having that experience has also helped us at Black Bean, because there's a lot of, there's sensitive issues around conservation. There's struggles people face. There's some aspects that should remain confidential for the security of animals, and just little things that you learn along the way. And it always helps if you're documenting someone's story, if you are aware of these things, and you can really help them rather than make their lives too difficult.
Yeah, exactly. I think we would like to think that we have kind of broken the mold of being this camera crew, and we're very ethical and conscious of how we operate in the field. And I think people, certainly our clients, our long-standing clients, have bought into this and have supported us because of the way we practice our trade, and that is to be aware of our surroundings and making sure that we're a professional team that delivers an awesome product at the end of the day,
and a product that can help them, and is not just for us or our showreel or a story that makes us look good, but rather something that is going to help them as an organization and is what they need.
Yeah, and I think giving them the opportunity to be the voice. So often we see a protagonist in a particular piece that doesn't really need to be there. And I think what we've always encouraged is to chat to the people on the ground, let them be the voice, and that's been something we've kind of kept to, I think, with a lot of certainly our conservation pieces.
Yeah, and I think just in terms of the future, we'd love to do more long format documentaries. We've just finished our first one, and we're working to sell it, which is been very challenging. And I think if we are able to sell it, and we have a lot of ideas for other documentaries, but of course these things are expensive, and we would love to rather have it commissioned going forward.
Yeah, I think, again, this has been a learning process for us. We've got a piece called The Edge of Existence that we're incredibly proud of, and we're looking to get it distributed. It was actually supposed to go through the film festival route this year, but sadly, obviously, that's been postponed. It was accepted into a number of international film festivals, and again, we're very excited about the product. But we're still a young team. We are based in South Africa, so we don't have access to the American market, and it's something we're working on. But certainly looking forward, we would like to do a lot more of this longer format style filmmaking. So it's going to be a big focus of ours over the next decade or so.
Yeah, and unfortunately at this time, because of the, just going through the festivals and some of them being postponed, we can't put the film up online. But we are putting together a behind the scenes video, and as soon as people can view the whole film, we'll be updating them.
Absolutely. And if you're watching this by any chance, and there are some comments and questions that you might have, please do feel free to send them our way, and we'll happily answer them.
Yeah, so I hope that explains a little bit about how James ended up doing what he's doing today. He still is private guiding and directing at Black Bean Productions, so he'll probably do an equal balance. Maybe some years he'll do more Black Bean shoots than private guiding, and other years he'll do more guiding and less, be able to be on less shoots. But he travels a lot, and he'll do both. He'll do a filming trip with the crew, and then he'll take guests around Africa. So yeah, that's where he's at.
How do you feel about your husband spending so much time away from home?
I think initially it was really hard, and I think it's still really hard, and having a child, it's brought a new set of challenges. But one thing I know for sure is that if you weren't doing that, you would be unhappy, and I'd rather you be happy than be at a desk and you weren't enjoying yourself and you weren't fulfilling your potential. And I think I've got quite used to it, and it's just been amazing that I'm able to join on some of the journeys and the trips, and our son's been able to come, and at Black Bean, joining Black Bean and being a director of Black Bean, I've been able to direct some of the shoots too, and I think I understand why you're needed on the ground. So if you do have to leave home, I often understand, that it's important that you're there. I think it's hard when people don't have the full picture, and they've got to say goodbye to their spouse often. And fortunately, I've been able to be on the ground and understand. So it's never easy, but it's our life.
Exactly, and I think that's what a lot of people don't realize is, certainly with the amount of travel, it isn't easy, but at the same time, it's something that gives us so much purpose, and it's basically molded us into the people we are today. And I don't think you or I would have it any other way.
No, definitely not. Awesome, thank you so much.
Thanks,
I hope you guys enjoyed the second Lessons from the Road.